Yeah. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining the SteelTrace webinar on real-time data exchange. Um, today, can you go to the next slide? Today, Simone and I will present how we do real-time data exchange. First, we'll have a presentation where we explain in what part of the process we do real-time data capture. And afterwards, we'll go over to a product demonstration. For the people that are on LinkedIn Live, for the product demo, we'll switch to Zoom. There are instructions in the comments on how to get into the Zoom meeting. So we won't do the product demonstration on LinkedIn Live. All right, so SteelTrace, we're a Dutch company founded 5 years ago, and we want to bring transparency and traceability to the supply chain of steel, or at least improve that and digitalize that. We're globally active. We're a startup from the Netherlands, but we have teams in the Ukraine, Belarus, and Italy. Yeah, we have customers and do projects all over the world currently. So in Asia, Europe, USA, Canada. And two of our main customers are Total Energies and Chevron. So before I give the floor to Simone, I just want to touch briefly on the technology behind our platform. Because, well, our data capture software doesn't just capture data, we also replace a process, a quality management process. So the data that we capture is currently captured on PDF format. It's the MTR or MTC or a test report. And if you deploy SteelTrace on your supply chain, you won't be getting PDFs in anymore. You'll be getting structured data. But then there is still the need for people to endorse that data. So QA managers, inspectors, lab technicians, they have to sign that information, which now happens, of course, with the document, the stamp, and the signature, and SteelTrace digitalizes that. And we use blockchain technology to make that possible. And there's a couple of added advantages to this system over the traditional PDF signature. Because with SteelTrace, everything is stored in a way that it can never be changed. So when a certificate gets created, data gets added, data gets endorsed, we store mathematical proofs in a blockchain of that event. And that makes it possible to, that makes it impossible to change data. And you have traceability of who added what at what point in time. So inspectors and QAs, they all get a digital identity, which is the cryptographic key that only they have access to. And that makes it impossible for people to create certificates in somebody else's name. So you get a lot of the potential for counterfeiting out of the supply chain, which reduces a lot of the risk. So I just wanted to touch on that why blockchain is an important part of the platform, and I'll give the floor to Simone to continue.
Thank you, Sam, for this introduction. My name is Simone. I'm product owner at SteelTrace, and for 14 years, I've been working in the oil and gas field, so I really know what I'm talking about. So as Tom mentioned, SteelTrace is not only blockchain, it's also real-time data exchange. Well, real-time, like blockchain, is a buzzword. You can hear everybody talking about blockchain at real-time, but what does it really mean in the oil and gas? Maybe you're not fully aware because it is common, it is part of your normal process, but real-time transmission of data is a real problem. You know, that the final product or the quality processes are certificates, but it's really hard to get documents on time. Certificates are supplied late, and you need to carefully check each of them to verify that they are compliant to project specification. You need to check each data, and unfortunately, each supplier uses its own format. So you need to check every certificate from every supplier, but you lose time just to understand where the informations are. Maybe they are at the top left or bottom right. So you lose time understanding the supplier format. And certificates are printed and scanned multiple times, and quality is lost at every step. In addition, data are presented in the certificate in a PDF format. And when you're lucky, the PDF is native and you can extract the data easily, but most of the time they are scanned PDFs. So if you want to grab all the data from the certificate, you need to manually write them in your own software, in your own ERP. And it may happen that you receive products even before their certificates. And when you receive the certificates, you find that they have errors and you have to ask the supplier to revise the certificate. And how much time is lost just due to paper exchange? 1 week, 2 weeks. So you know that the steel supply chain is quite long. And let's use as an example a 2 inches B1611 forged elbows. We have the steel mill who makes the billet, the forging shop who makes the forging, the heat treatment company that performs the heat treatment, the laboratory to perform the test, the machining shop to perform the machining, the threading, the socket, the stockist who buys the products and buys a large amount of these elbows, maybe an inspector who inspects the products and reviews the certificates, maybe even a distributor who ships it to the APC contractor, and finally the end user who may not actually see the piece itself but receive all the certificates and controls them. For such a simple product, we have at least 7 handoffs. How long does it take for the end user to review the final material certificates? Well, based on our experience, more or less each actor in the supply chain can take from 1 to 5 working days before issuing a report, which means that the end user will always be at least 1 month behind. And there is also another more critical situation. Let's say that a manufacturer has a bit heat exchanger ready for shipment and the delivery is very urgent, but the certification package is not ready yet. Option 1, the customer can agree to accept to ship a not certified yet product, with a punch list or conditional release, with a contractor clause maybe to pay a percentage of the item, typically is 10% only, when the certification package is transmitted and accepted. But how long does it take to prepare the full certification package? And even though the product may be shipped, still it can be used on site until the certificates are received. And in option 2, the product can be shipped without the certificates, which causes logistic and economic issues. You understand that without a real-time data exchange, there is no transparency in the process. But you're here and we have the answer that SteelTrace can help with that. Since all users, manufacturers, laboratories, EPC contractors, and users are registered in the platform, almost every action performed by a user is immediately visible to every other user. So when a manufacturer assigns a product to a purchase order, the customer is able to see that the product has been added. Or when a laboratory starts inputting the test results, these results are immediately visible by the manufacturer, by the inspector, and by the end user. There is no more document exchange, no more print, stamp, sign, scan, email, or paper, causing loss of time, loss of quality of the charts or of the certificates themselves. And think about one more thing, data analysis. If you want to make a statistical analysis of how the hardness test varies with the heat treatment temperature, you have to bring all certificates to your desk, write all data into your computer, and hoping not to make any mistake. But with SteelTrace, you can simply make a query on the database and get everything you want. So how does SteelTrace work? As mentioned before, all companies are registered in the platform, which basically means that the supplier must integrate with SteelTrace its own certification process. We are working also on integration with the SAP and other major ERPs because our platform doesn't want to replace the certification software that is already used, but rather be a centralized hub of data. For a laboratory, this means that test data can be directly uploaded using a JSON file or for manufacturer, the material certificates can be taken directly from the ERP. You will have automated traceability. Each single step is traceable in the blockchain with signature and date. There are no more questions on who approved what and when. In theory, you will not need any more to audit a supplier for traceability because everything is automated and immutable in the blockchain. You can move from physical to digital audit, which means that to audit the traceability process of the supplier, you simply ask the supplier to query a database. Other benefits are time reduction. People are no longer making documents, print them, ask their manager to sign and stamp, scan and email them to the inspector or to the end user. Digital signature can save up to 2 weeks of delivery time, but also since all information are visible to anyone immediately, you can detect a non-conformity the exact moment when that happens, so you can reduce also project delays. You have also data-driven insight. As a manufacturer, structured data can be used to capture performance data. As I mentioned before, how the heat treatment temperature can affect the hardness of a pipe. A manufacturer can also demonstrate the capability of a manufacturing process. As a contractor, you can monitor the supplier's performances, and everyone can use data to take preventive actions. If you see that the process performance is deviating from the standard, you can easily correct it on time before it's too late. And when all data are easily available and easily retrievable, you can make basically any statistic that you want. And in addition, a service with our pilot customers showed that using SteelTrace could save at least 3 hours on each purchase order.